I'm Adrian, the cruise and travel guy. Based on the appeal of my last video on this topic, it would appear that I'm not the only one questioning the state of the Australian cruise industry. So let's go a little bit deeper. A quick summary of my last video in case you missed it. Port fees in Australia and especially Sydney are among the highest in the world, and our government hasn't started on a promised review of a legislative exemption that allows cruise lines to sail between Australian ports without needing to first apply for a temporary license. In reference to the licensing exemption, I have lodged a petition for review with the government. If it is approved, I will share a link and then you can add your signature digitally once that has happened, if it happens. But over to port fees, and while I am making inquiries with the New South Wales Port Authority to better understand what those fees go on to support, I did a little further research and uncovered the true cost, or more of the cost, of doing cruise business in the state of New South Wales. The heavily publicised expense of $219,000 to dock a Quantum class ship in Sydney will increase to a little over $228,000 come July 1, when the per passenger site occupancy charge rises from $44.72 to $46.60. That charge is payable by a cruise line irrespective of whether it is stopping in town as part of a scheduled call or completing a passenger exchange during a turnaround visit. If a cruise line has to cancel a planned call, the New South Wales Port Authority will charge them 100% of that fee if the cancellation occurs within 6 months of the scheduled date. That fee drops to 50% for cancellations that occur between 6 and 12 months before, 25% between 12 and 24 months before, and 5% for any cancellations beyond 24 months before the scheduled call. Cruise ships docking in Sydney's White Bay are charged a bond of sorts called the Good Neighbour fee, and that is $12,100 including GST for the financial year ending 2025. This is returned to the cruise line when compliance with noise restriction parameters have been met. These restrictions are directly related to music played on deck and announcements made over the ship's PA system. So if you've ever wondered why the sail away party is a little bit delayed when sailing from White Bay, well, now you know. Other charges levied against cruise lines include waste removal, furniture hire, gangway hire, security, and more. Additionally, navigation and pilotage charges are payable. There's nothing inherently wrong with charging all of this, of course. There are services being provided to businesses and they need to pay for them. However, off the back of this, I've discovered an article which dives into Carnival Corporation's 2023 financials and the company's per passenger operating profit. As reported by David Crowther of Sherwood, the average index per passenger revenue was just $156. That figure takes into account the cost of the fare, onboard revenue, and all operating costs. That's not a big margin, and although most cruise lines have returned to profitability since the pandemic shutdowns, most had to borrow heavily or finance heavily during that period to remain afloat. Cruise lines are businesses, and most of them have shareholders. Businesses need to remain profitable in order to continue providing a service to their customers and pay their employees. As corporations with movable assets, though, cruise lines will simply find somewhere else to sail. That means regions with lower operating costs and high passenger demand, places like the Mediterranean and the Caribbean. It's for these reasons that the Australian cruise industry is in a perilous position, and that's before we take into account the weak Australian dollar. And while cruise lines do charge passengers a separate line item for port fees and taxes and government charges, I would assume that this doesn't fully cover their cost base. This is based on my own booking, where the port fees and government taxes don't seem to quite add up to all of the expenses the cruise line will have to bear per passenger. And on top of all of this remains policy and regulation that contributes to stifled growth and, as is expected to happen over the coming years, a retraction of the local cruise industry. Once again, thanks so much for all of your feedback and support on my last video on this topic. I'll continue to do what I can and try and spread the word, including doing more research into these intricate details. If you can continue to spread the word on your side, share things on Facebook and social media, share these videos if you like, then I have a feeling that all of us together will potentially, at least, maybe get some more eyes on it and move the needle just a bit. Thanks as always for watching. Follow along on Facebook and Instagram at The Cruise and Travel Guy for more up-to-date information. And if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button. And if you want to book a cruise, head to my website, thecruiseandtravelguy.com.au. Thanks as always, and I'll see you soon.